know, Dave, off the deep end is where you make your money, buddy.
Yeah, I guess so.
Cobia's a fish that you definitely know a lot about and you love catching.
I don't know, everything about them. I know that I love to eat them. I've caught a few of them, not as many as blue marlins I have, but I really love to fish for the cobias. I kind of grew up there in the Destin area a little bit, and did a lot of my first fishing was out there trying to catch them. And they have a really unique way up there. Every time in the spring, water gets 68, 70 degrees, probably about the end of May, beginning of April. The cobia come in, and that's what they do everywhere they live. They come in from the wrecks in the spring, and we don't really know what they're doing. They're probably, probably has something to do with, trying to make more little cobias, because that's what most fish do. Whenever they make a big migration, they're either going to eat something or to make little babies. So that's probably what they're doing. But when they're coming up that coastline up there in the Panhandle, the water's really beautiful and clear, and you can see them from a long way away, because the water's only 20 feet deep out there out the end of the second bar. And so you can get up in a tower, and they tower fish for them. They sight fish for them, and they see them swimming in the water. They look like a big shark. They look like a big brown shark is what they look like. If you didn't know any better, that's what you'd think they were.
Right.
And then they cast these big jigs at them, or a live bait or whatnot, and then they're going to use a 7.5 foot spinning rod, because they want to try to get, a good long cast. They don't want to spook the fish. They don't want to make it go down. They want to be able to, keep seeing it and make sure that it stays up. So they want to get a long way away, so they'll use a 7.5 foot spinning rod. This is a Pez Vela, 12 to 25 pound, which is perfect. It's got to have some flex at the end for a good cast.
Right.
Plus,
I noticed that because it does have that light tip.
Yeah, if you're gonna be casting, so you need to have a good reflex and shoot that jig out there. And plus, you need a really good butt section, because cobia are pretty powerful fish. They're powerful all the way to the tail, so they can fight really hard. So
what are we the spinning rod, we're gonna load it up with what size test? 20 is enough?
20, if 20-pound braid is fine. You're never gonna break 20-pound braid. If you've got a good spinning rod that can put 7-8 pounds of drag, that's really all you're gonna need.
Yeah.
You really can't hold much more than 15 pounds of drag anytime with a spinning rod anyway for very long. Most guys can't.
Yeah, so the Akuma Azor works perfect.
That little Azor 55 is perfect. And you just gotta have enough real, line capacity to make a good long cast and then fight them once they get on. You should never break the line when you're fishing for these cobia up in the Panhandle, or even over here on the Cape when they're on the shoals, because there's nothing for them to get into. They're on sand bottom.
Right.
And if your boat works and your drag works, you should never break the line, unless something swims into the line, or you get tangled up on a buoy or something that he swims to. You should never break the line, no matter what you're fishing for.
So
really.
how else do they fish for them, other than the big, what do they call it, the ding-a-ling jig?
Well, yeah, that's these are Helton jigs. That's just a regular old cobia jig from Cape Canaveral. A lot of times we're looking for rays over at the Cape Canaveral. Instead of just seeing individual fish, we're looking for turtles and rays, because cobia are very curious. They love to hang around big things, like even an underwater wreck or a big floating buoy, anything on the surface. They'll get around it and orient themselves to large things. Any of the whales, the big, like I said before, the manta rays. And if you're looking for those big objects, a lot of times you'll see cobia. And other times, most of the time we catch them in the summertime when we're using just a chicken rig and some squid, trying to catch snappers and groupers.
Right.
Cobia are on the wrecks too. That's where they live during the summertime. They're a deep water fish. They live out there on those wrecks. So if you want to catch cobia in the summertime, that's what you got to do. You got to go out there and fish on those wrecks. And sometimes we'll see them. We'll get up on a wreck and we'll run the engines a little bit, zoom, zoom, zoom. And they're very curious fish. So they'll come up to that back of the boat, and if you see them swimming around, you toss a jig at them, toss a live bait at them. We always kept, back in the day, we had those big white pen slammers, and we'd use those. You couldn't cast worth a dog with them, but we just always kept one around with a big jig on it, just in case we saw a cobia when we're bottom fishing. And that's how you catch a lot of cobia during the summer and the fall, is we're out there bottom fishing, and you'll be sitting there and all of a sudden you'll see one swimming around the boat. Say, oh man, get out the jig or get out the live bait and try to catch them. So
that's some pretty stuff.
Oh, no, no worries.
It's the bad part about it is when we got species like this, it's hard to cover it all, because there's so much great stuff to talk about.
Yeah, there is. There's talk about it.
I'm looking forward to coming back over here at the Hummingbird Workbench and talking about some new products.